Just when you think Will Wade was all out of tricks for this offseason, he had one more up his sleeve. Sayonara to Paul Mbiya.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Friday show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can sign up today and get $200 back in bonus bets if you sign up, place a $5 bet, and it wins. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started today. Happy Friday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, just when we thought we could be comfortable and look at a roster that we thought was finalized and say, all right, now let's start talking about who's going to start, who's coming off the bench, and what to expect. No. One more roster acquisition here. I think this one will actually be the last one, but I mean, who really knows at this point? Our Congolese center, Paul Mbiya, will no longer be joining us in Raleigh. A decommitment and a requested release from his NLI that had already been signed with NC State. That occurred on Wednesday. We talked about how on paper, it looked like he had a world of raw talent that could be utilized by Will Wade, especially with the need that we have here in the front court. He was 6'11", had a wingspan of, I think, like 7'7", something ridiculous like that. However, I believe the very first thing I said about him when we talked about him originally, how will that translate to the United States in the ACC at the D1 level? Who's really to say at this point? So it's certainly a shame to see him go. What could have been here, I think a lot of us are very optimistic about what he would have given us. But as they say, easy come, easy go.
You know, I'm not upset about this because there was an instant backfield. There was an instant replacement. There was not a, oh man, we're scrambling, we're shuffling our feet, don't know what to do. There was a, oh, that didn't work out. That's all right. We're good to go here. Will Wade may be an American gangster, but Andrew Slater is, in fact, Bruce Wayne. He is Batman. He moves in the shadows. He is the night. He is Gotham. You close your eyes and look up, and all of a sudden, there goes Andrew Slater talking to a new recruit. Hey, can I interest you in some reckoning, perhaps? Would you, by chance, like to be a part of a ACC and national reckoning? Excellent. Come talk to me. The reality of this thing is very simple. Will Wade wants guys that want to be here. Now, Grayson and I tell you, when we know something, we tell you when we're speculating. And I'm telling you right now, the sources that have told us on this thing, I'm not going to say I'm 1,000% sure on what has happened with this Paul Mbiya situation. All I know is at the end of the day, the letter of intent was signed. It was stated, hey, I want to be here. Things changed. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to be here, we do only volunteers, never hostages. We are never going to twist anybody's arm to play for the Wolfpack. We're never going to say, oh, man, you signed, so you got to be here. We ain't letting you go nowhere. If you don't want to be in Raleigh, one of the best cities in America, if you don't want to play for NC State, a team with a long story, tradition, and history, who, by the way, has a very recent Final Four run and ACC championship. So everybody can no longer say, oh, you all haven't won a championship in 30 years. More like 2 at this point. 2 years. We're 2 years removed from a championship, 2 years removed from a Final Four appearance. So, if you don't want to be a part of that, if you don't want what Wolfpack Nation has to offer, that's okay. Go on about your way. We wish Mr. Mbiya the best. I don't hope that he flounders or flops or that he has to take less money elsewhere. Same thing for PJ Haggerty. I didn't hope anything negative for him. But the reality is, at this point in the game, if it is about money or something like that, I mean, it's just a really late time to kind of be dealing in that because this is June. We're looking at mid to late June. Everybody's rosters are, for the most part, built up. And you know what a built-up roster means when you're talking about paying athletes now? Most of the money is spent up. Okay? So, I mean, hey, more power to them. I hope it works out for them. But it's just the timing of all this is just it seems like an unfortunate situation all the way around. But I'm grateful that we have one of the best GMs doing it in Andrew Slater, who immediately had the next man up.
Right. So I'll fill in some of the rest of the blanks here with some speculation. I'll just tell you the things I've been told, the things I've heard, the things I'm pretty confident in what has actually gone down. It does appear, reading the tea leaves, that this was about money. And that's a shame to see it go down like that, because Kenton told you Paul did want to be here. And I think some of the other powers that be via, agents, representation, this, that, and the other, seems to me like they got in the way of what could have been a good thing here. And that's a shame, because we saw a very similar thing go down with PJ Haggerty. So there's some parallel there in that it seems like there was a deal at some point in time, and then perhaps that deal was gone back on. And when you're dealing with Will Wade, Andrew Slater, and Patrick Stacey's another name I want to introduce the conversation here, they don't play that. They don't get down that way. They will stick to their guns no matter what. They know what they have. They know what they're offering. And if you don't want to be a part of that, well, get to stepping. So it appears that that is what has gone down here with Paul Mbiya. It seems like it's past the 11th hour. We're talking 11:45 here. Sucks to see him go. But yeah, Patrick Stacey is the name I want to bring up here. I was listening to the podcast from Curry Hicks Sage. I encourage all NC State fans to go listen to that episode. It's $3 if you want the whole episode, free if you just want 45 minutes. It is everything that you want in Will Wade, uncensored. He says everything you want to hear. You get to pick his brain via a podcast host. It's an excellent interview. But something that Will Wade said in that podcast interview was Patrick Stacey, his assistant GM, is one of the most disciplined people he's ever met in his life. He is uncompromising on the deal they've offered. Again, they know what they have. They will not shuffle their feet just to make something work. The deal is the deal, and you do not go back on it. That is where this now gets extra interesting, because Patrick Stacey came from where? Wyoming. Enter now Scottie Ebube, our new center, 6'10" from Wyoming. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to connect the dots here. Patrick Stacey made that connection happen. Scottie Ebube will join us in Raleigh now instead of Paul Mbiya. I see a lot of people kind of hemming and hawing about the experience that Ebube has. He played 2 years at Southern Illinois, 1 year at Wyoming, hasn't played any more than like 10 minutes per game. We'll see what we get out of him, but you had to have a depth piece after you lose Mbiya. And I want to credit this staff. That's Will Wade, Andrew Slater, and Patrick Stacey. You can't be empty-handed if you're ready for everything. They say that a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, and that's exactly what they accomplished here. They weren't surprised by anything that went down. They had a contingency plan for seemingly everything, and that keeps NC State out of a bad spot, potentially losing Mbiya and not having a backup plan. The backup plan is Ebube. They actually announced that before the Mbiya stuff even broke. That's how prepared that they were. Credit to the staff for making a move when one had to be made.
Uncompromising. That is the type of stuff that I like to see. I have been around many teams in my lifetime. I played football for 17 years. I played on some very good teams. I played on some very bad teams. And one thing that I can tell you, every winning team every winning team I played for had in common. Every championship team I played for had in common. It was going to be everybody was going to toe the line. You're going to show up. You're going to do what you said you were going to do, how you said you were going to do it, or there were going to be consequences. It is something that I'm seeing with this team already in terms of, and again, this is speculation. I will tell you when I know, when I'm like, oh, I've got people on the inside telling me this. So if they're lying, then guess what? That's as close as it gets to this. I don't in this situation. But from what I've heard for both of the guys that we've had, that it was like, oh, yeah, this is a done deal, and then things did not work out that way. It was said to be on a similar type of time in terms of an agreement was made and then reneged on, not from our side. So that kind of unwillingness and unwavering fortitude on this is how we're going to do it, this is how we're going to build it, this is what we're talking about, that's the stuff of champions. Even in negotiation, that is the stuff of champions. And it feels crazy to say negotiations are part of college sports, but it is now. That's where we are now. So being unwavering in those negotiations, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And the way that they do the little things of everything needs to be in decent and proper order. Everything needs to be, we said it was going to be this is going to be this. That's the type of stuff championship teams are made of.
Whether it's extremely disappointing or not that disappointing, whatever side you fall on, What's important here is you had the right staff in order to handle this the right way. One shoe goes out the door, you immediately had one shoe catch that door so it couldn't close on you in a time of need. So again, credit to Wade, credit to Slater, credit to Patrick Stacey, an excellent job of not being left empty-handed. Out goes Paul Mbiya, in comes Scottie Ebube. Opposing teams might want to keep their head on a swivel because now we got Boob and Lube in the front court in the Lenovo Center this year. Sorry, had to do it. Scottie Ebube, welcome to the Wolfpack, a very key piece to that front court. Now, I guess some of those comments made by Wade, the 28 minutes for Ven-Allen Lubin, starting to make a little bit more sense to us all as we hear at the end of this week. So interesting development, to say the very least. Another roster move right when you didn't expect another one to go down. Give us your thoughts in the comments. Out goes Paul Mbiya. In comes Scottie Ebube. Tell us what you think on that. Coming up next, we're getting into Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Friday sponsor is FanDuel. The MLB season is heating up, and every game brings clutch hits, standout pitching, and simply unforgettable moments. From walk-off homers to no-hitters in the making, there's no shortage of drama on the diamond, and there's no better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before first pitch and even playing live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans now have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. Who is your MLB team this season? Is it the Atlanta Braves, the Washington Nationals, the Baltimore Orioles? Have you been tracking how they've done up to this point? Well, the summer's getting hot, and it's also heating up on FanDuel as well. If you're new to FanDuel, now is the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Yes, that's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed if that first pesky $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the MLB. Middle portion of our Friday show. Now time for Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. Here we go. First one comes from our guy, Donovan. Shout out, Donovan. He says, I personally love the jab at those guys. This is regards to Will Wade and UNC. People take things too seriously. Just let it be some harmless trash talk. We all know he has to prove it on the court, but why not keep social media, news, etc. talking about us during the spurt's dead period? Davis should fire back with his own jab in the near future to make things really interesting. Go Pack. Yeah, I mean, hitting the nail on the head here. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a rivalry. Trash talk is involved. Have we really gone that soft? Throwaway comment at an event for NC State fans. He's doing some crowd work. He's talking to NC State fans at an NC State NIL event. Knowing the audience, he's just poking a little bit of fun, saying UNC's too dumb to play Ven-Allen Lubin 28 minutes a game. So guess what? We're going to do it here, and we're going to see the results. You see how easy of a sentence that was? Don't make this out to be something bigger than it is. It's ridiculous. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. And UNC, if they have any character to them, fire back. We welcome it, in fact. We want to hear what you have to say. That's fine by us because it's fun.
I absolutely love what you said there. The crowd work part in particular. If you hear the things that Muhammad Ali said about Joe Frazier before some of their fights, some of the most vile things ever said to another boxer in terms of those two talking to each other. And Muhammad Ali profusely apologized for it after they had both retired and all that. But you know what Muhammad Ali also said about Joe Frazier? There is nobody else I'd rather have next to me if I'm going to fight a holy war. He respected the man to the utmost, but he was just playing up to the crowd. But you know what I think is the worst part of this, Grayson? If you know a jab ain't true, you just kind of let it roll off your back, you know? Like if somebody said about me, if somebody were to say, oh, Kenton doesn't know anything about football. He doesn't know any ball at all. I would challenge his football knowledge up against my third grader. I just laugh. I just say, hey, if your third grader has my football knowledge already, that kid in for a hell of a coaching career in the very near future. But I'm not going to sit up here and get all in arms. But you can't say that. You can't say I was dumb. You can't say that. Unless secretly, you know you were a little dumb for not playing them. At which point, this ain't a rap battle. This is a lifelong battle with yourself, okay? That's between you and you. I ain't got nothing to do with that.
Next one comes from our guy, Chris, on the same topic. He says, chess move. Any group of men are going to work harder, better, and more efficiently when a common enemy exists. Will Wade is pushing buttons and pulling levers that are unifying the team, the collective, and a formerly apathetic fan base with a stunning efficiency. The expectation was a great coach, but we're getting so much more than that. And the Dirty Foot Club, with all their decorum, can only watch. Even Duke fans are now jumping on the bandwagon to say that we are overtaking the Baby Blues. The chips are definitely all in the center of the table. The State UNC game is going to be epic, likely gaining national attention as a put-up or shut-up game for Will Wade and a hot seat game for Hubert Davis. That spotlight has the potential to generate massive gains in recruiting and NIL as a program bonus. Will Wade is setting himself up to be a generational talent. Yeah, this is extremely well said, and it's definitely piggybacking on what we were just saying here. It was a chess move because it gets the fans fired up. It gets the players fired up. Like, imagine being Ven-Allen Lubin, and you're thinking, wow, my new coach has so much faith in my ability that he sees deficiencies in where I was being used last year, and he's going to use them to our advantage this year. What a vote of confidence that's got to feel for Val, knowing that, man, maybe this is the best situation for me when I was down the street last year and I didn't get what I thought I'd be getting. Look at this now. That's got to feel so good as a player. Hubert Davis is not even the one that's crying about this. It's the whole Carolina fan base. Surprise, surprise. This was just crowd work. Know that. This is a rallying tactic for his team, this fan base, the collective, and everyone else involved. And that has been the focus of Will Wade up to this point.
I love that third sentence here. Will Wade is pushing buttons and pulling levers that are unifying the team, the collective, and a formerly apathetic fan base with stunning efficiency. Inject it into my veins. Actually, no, don't do that, because then I might form an addiction and I'll need this injected at least twice per day moving forward. But I'm going to tell you, this is the type of stuff. This is why I love not only Wolfpack Nation, but specifically Locked On Wolfpack listeners, because y'all have some of the most interesting insights, and y'all think about things in a way that even I find myself saying, I hadn't even considered that. Grayson, you're absolutely right. As a player, hearing my coach say, they were too dumb to play Ken over there. You will never get me to work hard. You will never get me to be more attentive to detail about every single thing. You will never get a better version of me than when I believe that I am believed in. And that is a statement to say, hey, I believe in you so much. I think that guy over there that's getting paid a few million a year has got it wrong. I do. I really and truly do. And also, it riles up the fan base, which you see everybody's rolling with Will Wade. There's not a world in which, you know, if Hubert Davis were to text Will Wade, you go grab your fans, meet us in the parking lot, and I'll grab my fans, and we'll see what happens. That all of Wolfpack Nation would not stand right beside Will Wade, saying, meet us where? Oh, don't worry about it. The cheese and wine crowd wants to get into fisticuffs? I never could have imagined. I've been waiting for this day. So, you know, it is a great time for that. And, of course, the collective, they're understanding, oh, he's up in the ante. He's up in the score. He's not. And the interesting thing about it is to go after UNC is not to go after, you know, a rival who's had no success in this realm. It's not to go after somebody who they're just kind of around. That is a certified blue blood that you're saying, hey, those guys are a little dumb over there. Their head, brain a little smooth. Lots of no ridges on my brain, no ridges on his. They refuse to play this man. So, you know, I think this is an absolute chess move. I love these comments, man. Shout out to Donovan and Chris so far.
Next one comes from either D. Senis or DC Ennis. They say, I might be overreacting, but should I be panicking over the fact that Paul Mbiya has decommitted? Do we think the fella from Wyoming is a better fit? Does this mean that Ven-Allen Lubin is the for sure starter? Are we worried about the size of the front court now? So many questions. So, as we said earlier, I don't think you should be worried. I think it does suck a little bit because we thought he'd be a very big piece on this roster. Untapped raw potential that maybe Will Wade could be the one to get the most out. So easy come, easy go there. Scottie Ebube fills an immediate need. He has size. In fact, like I said, very similar frame to Paul Mbiya. So it's not exactly a one-to-one fit there, but I mean, at the very least, you're picking up size and athleticism because Ebube looks pretty good on tape as well. So we'll see how that shapes out. Does this mean that Vallis is for sure starter? Yeah, I'd have to believe so. But I think it also opens the lane for additional creativity. Like, for example, Jerry Dang is 6'9". Could he potentially see some minutes at the 5? Perhaps. I mean, Ven-Allen Lubin's only 6'8". Maybe he'll even beef up a little bit this summer to prepare for playing at the 5. But what I would do is just continue to put all my faith and trust in Will Wade and the system that he has. Again, still has not steered us wrong one single time. Although this feels like a disappointment, it's not a miss, I would say. So continue to put that faith in Wade that they are going to get this right one way or another.
You know, Grayson and I had segments in the past where we talked about, even with Paul Mbiya coming, who do you expect to be the starter to start the season? And we both agreed Ven-Allen Lubin was your most likely option.
Right.
Based on what we had seen from Paul and based on what we knew. I don't think that this changes that all that much. I think that the definitive declaration that, hey, we're going to play kind of tells you where this team was at in terms of how they view Ven-Allen Lubin. The concern about size, I'm not really concerned about it, because if you look at the past few years and you say, well, hey, what was going on with NC State and there was a lack of size and all that in the past few years, and this roster doesn't even have as tall of bigs with not having a Ben Middlebrooks or a BHH in the picture. Here's the deal, right? Because I believe both of those guys are taller than our tallest player now. Here's the deal. It's not just about height for me, because I've seen it. I've seen it. How tall was DJ Burns, Grayson?
I think he's 6'8", 6'9".
6'9". And yet, when he got to that left hand, the boy was cooking the beef like 5 guys. You understand? He was absolutely putting guys in the blender. I mean, so I don't look at it as just the height is the only metric that matters. These are two large gentlemen in terms of Ven-Allen Lubin and Ebube. These are not small guys. Like Dang, although he is 6'9", a bit wispy. You know, you can look at him and tell he's one of those guys goes into the weight room for the mirrors. Go in there and look at himself, make sure he look good. Okay, but you got two bigger fellas down there, and I think that's becoming kind of common for college basketball. These bigs that are about anywhere from about 6'8" to maybe 6'10". They don't have the longest reach, but they play a lot of years in college because of that, because they know their NBA prospects are a little bit more limited, but they can be uber productive in college. I'd hate to give the Dirty Foot Club credit, but Armando Bacot fit perfectly into that kind of archetype of a guy that – how tall was Armando Bacot? 6'10", 6'9"? I mean,
I think 6'10".
He was another guy that he wasn't the tallest on court, but he was a double-double machine because he had timing, he had anticipation, and he had the girth to make sure, like, hey, you're not getting around me when I box out. So at the end of the day, I'm not truly worried about size here. And even if I was to be worried about size, this team doesn't have a lot of problems that last year's team had. Last year, Grayson and I both came in saying, hey, who's going to shoot your threes? We have multiple answers to that question this year. Last year, we were asking, hey, if MOC is off the court, who's going to do your primary ball handling? We have at least 3 guys off the top of my head that I would feel extremely comfortable being the guy that we're like, hey, we're going to kind of set the offense up and run things through him. So at the end of the day, I have less worries about the size and less worries about the overall talent of this roster in general than I have in some time. I think we'll be fine.
Little fun fact for you. So Bacot was 6'10", 240. Ebube is 6'10", 275. He has 35 pounds on Armando Bacot. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself into Ebube here. I don't know. We'll have to see. Last one's a football question. Comes from JK Piano Studio. Says the only thing that has me a little bit hopeful is the momentum effect. If the offense is cooking, defense might gain some confidence or take some risks that work out for us. Dave Dorn, over the course of his 13-year tenure, has repeatedly preached about complementary football. It has perhaps never been more important than it might be in 2025. Because if the offense is leading the way for you, and we fully expect that to be the case, if the offense is playing extremely well, it might give the defense a bit more confidence to go out and just play to the best of their ability. Or if you flip that, maybe the offense is struggling and maybe the defense gets a very big turnover for you, let's say in the red zone immediately. What does that do for the offense? It gets them fired up. That concept is going to be vital for this team in 2025. So this comment is exactly nail on the head.
You know, I look at this and I say The momentum effect is real. I'll say my thought is this: if the defense can just be opportunistic, we have bought in some absolutely fantastic ball hawks in the secondary. If they can just be opportunistic enough, I don't need world beaters at most of these positions. I just need enough. World beaters, that's where you start winning championships. That's if you have a world beating edge rush rotation, that's where you're like, hey, we need to go ahead and do something serious with this. If you have a world beating quarterback room or whatever the case may be, that's when you start looking like that. If our defense can just be good enough, I don't need them to be top 5 in the nation. I don't need them to be, Grayson and I, we're going to get into this with the most underrated players here. But there were some times where our defenses were top 10 in the nation, and those teams did not win more than 8 games. This defense just has to be enough because I believe our offense, I'm telling you right now, I'm expecting special things from this offense. I really am. Defensively, just be opportunistic. Just create takeaways here and there. Just do bend but don't break. Make teams work for it. If they're going, score, just make them have to work their way down the field in bit by bit instead of just bombing me over the top and things like that. Make them get it right every time, and you'll be fine there. But I get what you're saying in terms of the hope is that the defense builds confidence as the year goes along.
Continuing our conversation from Wednesday, now it's time for the most underrated defensive players from NC State in the last 25 years. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Friday show, as I said, continuing our conversation from Wednesday, now switching over to the defense, the most underrated defensive players in NC State football history of the last 25 years, so since the year 2000. Let's start up front where Kenton used to play, the defensive line. Kenton, who is your most underrated defensive lineman in the last 25 years? And you can't say yourself.
Grayson, come on, man. I spent more time on the injured reserve than I did on the field, so it definitely would not be me. With all due respect to like what could have been or what would have been if I would have stayed healthy, the results are what they are. But I will say it was a guy that I played with and that I love very dearly. He's a dear friend of mine. He is top 5 all time in career sacks at NC State. And for whatever reason, he doesn't get mentioned with the Bradley Chubbs and the Mario Williams and companies of the world. And that would be Mr. Art Norman. He was spectacular here, man. He was really good. Extremely undersized guy, but he was uber productive. He just found ways to make it happen time and time again. And so, I really and truly don't see a world where I think who had the impact that he had, but does not get talked about in that same way. But Art Norman is one of those guys that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and he was very good here for many years.
So my answer, and I waffled on this one for a long time because originally I was going to lean with Manny Lawson, but it's like, how could you go underrated when he's a first-round draft pick? Well, it's because he was overshadowed, I guess you could say, by Mario Williams, the number 1 overall pick of that year's draft. So I won't go with Manny Lawson, although I think that's a valid answer. This one is going to feel like recency bias, but I don't think people really understood how good he was at NC State. Kenton's going to love this answer, actually. Aleem McNeil. From right down the road, Sanderson High School, a Raleigh kid. He had an outstanding career at NC State, and I always remember him for that the big man pick 6 he had on the road at UVA.
The thick 6 in Charlottesville.
The thick 6, that's right. Unbelievable moment for Aleem up front, and I don't know if we've had an interior defensive lineman as good as him since. I think Brandon Cleveland might be knocking on that door, but Aleem McNeil was an absolute dog for the Wolfpack, and I never really thought he got enough love in doing so. The defensive linemen as well as the offensive linemen, they never really do, I guess, unless you're like a Bradley Chubb or that level of player. So Aleem McNeil is my most underrated defensive lineman of the last 25 years. Let's move back to linebacker. Kenton, who's your most underrated linebacker?
This was another one. It was hard because we've had some damn good linebackers, And so the criteria for me is very similar to all the other ones. It wasn't about who I think the best was. Because the best, everybody knows Peyton Wilson.
We know.
That's your guy. But even after Peyton Wilson, if you go about 1 through 5, I would say in the last 25 years, there's a consensus on who those guys are. You know, you've got Terrell Manning, you've got Coach Thunder, D'Antonio Burnett, you've got Nate Irving, those guys. Like those, you've got those guys. Drake Thomas would be the 5th of that group. You know who I think deserves more love for holding down the fort at times, especially when Peyton Wilson was sustaining some injuries early in their time together?
Isaiah Moore.
He's on the staff now. You know him, you love him. Isaiah Moore, number 1 in the program, number 1 in your hearts as well. Hell of a linebacker. The dude just, he just knew where to be all the time. He just knew. It looked like he was so instinctive because he wasn't as fast straight line as Peyton Wilson. He wasn't as quick in close quarters as a Drake Thomas, but he just knew where the ball would be all the damn time. And he does not get love in that vein and in that mode because his numbers aren't as flashy as Peyton or Drake's. Drake is so good as a linebacker. A lot of people don't realize this. He's top 5 all time in sacks in a career in NC State, I believe. Top 5 or top 6 or 7, some along those lines. He's one of the top guys in that regard. And we also saw him be a leading tackler and all those things. Isaiah, he never had that. He never quite had that level of statistical success. But I'm going to tell you, he has a special mind for football. And I would be shocked if I don't see him as somebody's defensive coordinator or something like that coming up soon here. Because, again, he had a feel for the game that was a bit uncanny. And he just got overshadowed by not only Drake's greatness, but you can't separate Drake and Thayer. You just can't. You for whatever reason, the Thomas family is the Thomas family. Those two go together. And then Peyton Wilson, Superman, Mr. Everything. He didn't wear the symbol of Krypton on his chest or the crest of the L family. He just wore 11. He was fantastic. And then you got this odd guy out. It's like, how good is he? But like on most other NC State teams, he would have been the alpha dog. He would have been the linebacker that everybody's like, oh, my God, this kid's amazing.
My answer is actually one that Kenton has already named. And growing up for me, this guy was like the NC State linebacker because this is before the Peyton Wilsons and the Drake Thomas and the Isaiah Moore. Nate Irving. Nate Irving was probably the premier linebacker, at least for me growing up as a kid. I also think that Coach Thunder is a very underrated answer in this exercise. Go look up Coach Thunder's stats. My man was getting it done. Shout out to Coach Thunder. But yeah, I'm going with Nate Irving. The suplex video that makes its way on the internet, usually like once a year, it lives in NC State history. The tenacity that he played with, the midriff jersey before it was popularized now. Nate Irving is my most underrated linebacker. And I'm also very partial to NC State guys, the guys that stay so close to the fan base and they're always on Twitter repping the Wolfpack. Nate Irving has been like the epitome of an NC State guy the last decade plus. So shout out to Nate Irving, my most underrated linebacker of the last 25 years. And to cap this thing off now, DBs, your most underrated defensive back of the last 25 years.
Oh, man, this is another one that it was just so hard because there were so many guys. I mean, you look at a guy I played with in terms of Hakeem Jones, who was fantastic and did a lot of great things. And he was the guy who said Marquise Williams was like soft. And if you hit him hard enough, he'll quit. And sure enough, we hit that man with a Roberto Duran no mas. And he tapped out in that game after he said that. I think you could have a lot of guys in this conversation for DB. I mean, obviously Dave Emerson he's 1A. He's the superior guy of the class. And you've also got Aiden White, who, although his senior season may have left a little bit to be desired, if you look at the totality of his body of work, he has to be amongst the pantheon of NC State greats in terms of defensive back play. But I'm going to go with a guy, some people may not agree with me here. I don't think that history will remember him as kindly as it should for all of the things that he did whenever he wasn't being ejected for targeting, and that would be Mr. Tanner Ingram. That man was a menace, a Tasmanian devil. He was just a heat-seeking missile. He wasn't very big. He wasn't a guy that you look at like, oh, yeah, that's the type of safety that he walked off the bus and you're like, oh, That's a pretty big linebacker there. You're like, no, that's a safety. That wasn't him. But between those lines, when you saw him coming at you, oh boy. Yeah, I'll tell you this much: they might need the smelling salt to peel you up off the ground. And again, it's not to say that he was the best, but he was a guy that does not get mentioned amongst the Earl Wolves of the world. He was a guy that doesn't get mentioned among the Brandon Bishops of the world. You know, those types of guys that people look at and they're like, oh, those were great safeties. Those were great defensive backs at NC State. But I think he was damn good. And again, some of those targeting ejections were like, that's a reputation ejection there. Because if it was anybody else makes that hit, they're still in the game right now. But he was a fantastic player.
I'm so glad that you brought up Tanner Ingle, because my choice is essentially if Tanner Ingle ate a Super Mario mushroom. Adrian Wilson, going all the way back to the year 2001. He played safety for NC State. He was just as tenacious, if not more tenacious, than Tanner Ingle was, but he was 6'3", 230 playing safety. You want to talk about getting caught over the middle with a guy like that? No thanks. I am checked out for the rest of maybe my entire life if I'm getting hit like that from Adrian Wilson. Also went on to have a lengthy NFL career. I think it was like 9 or 10 years. Adrian Wilson is my pick. I wish they made safeties his size still today. Can you imagine a 6'3" safety that can run you down or take your head off while you're trying to catch a slant over the middle? They don't make them like they used to. Adrian Wilson is my most underrated DB of the last 25 years. And yet again, it is now y'all's turn. And you guys did such a great job with this on the offense as well. So many great underrated offensive players. Now we want the same for the defensive side of the ball. Give us your most underrated defensive NC State players for the last 25 years. Get those down in the comment section, as well as your thoughts on Paul Mbiya, Scottie Ebube, trading one for another. Are we done with the offseason acquisitions? Who's really to know at this point? I think we are, but I don't know. Will Wade's in charge. You never know what to expect. Tell us your thoughts on that and anything else you have on your mind. Drop that in the comment box as well. Mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll catch you back here on Monday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.